I want to tell you an amazing, amazing story. Now, if I tell you, I hear stories all day. People contact me, email me, call me, and stop me telling me stories. This is by far one of the best stories I ever heard. This is unbelievable. But it really illustrates the point we're talking about. So a girl, she's 23 years old. She asked me not to mention her name. We'll call her Chana Weinstock. Let's call her Chana Weinstock. I hope nobody's name here is Chana Weinstock. So she calls me up. She says, Rabbi, I have a great story to share with you. I was like, okay, go. She said a few months ago she was in Eretz Yisrael. She was in Israel. And she was staying in Tzfat for Shabbos. She was in Tzfat for Shabbos. And she said that she wasn't feeling so well. She was dehydrated a little bit. She really was having headaches. She was feeling nauseous. And she said that she decided, instead of saying Matzah Shabbos Sundays throughout the weekend, she was supposed to stay there for a longer time. She'll go back to Har Nof where she was staying at, and she'll come back, she'll rest up. She goes back to Har Nof. She rests up Sunday afternoon. She gets a call. She's in bed, not feeling so well. She gets a call from a friend in Haifa. And their friend says, Chana, I need a favor. I'm working on a project for a certain company, and I need a picture from the Har HaBayis, from a certain angle on the Har HaBayis. Now, you can get that angle, that picture, if you stand on a certain place on the Har HaZeisim. So she asked Chana, could you please go to Har HaZeisim, take a bus, Shar Shechem, and you'll get there, and you'll stand there. And she told her exactly where she has to be. Anyways, Chana wasn't feeling well, but she really wanted to do her friend this favor, so she gets up, Mamish Mesiras Nefesh, and she takes a bus down to Shar Shechem, and by Shar Shechem she was supposed to take another bus, and she sees she wasn't feeling so well. Her head was a little, it was spinning, and she told me she was nauseous, and she noticed that there was a blue and white bus that pulled up. Now, blue and white is the color of the Israeli flag, by the way. And it's interesting that Arab buses, their colors are blue and white, and the color of the Arab flag, which is green and red, that's the color of the Egged buses, the Israeli buses. So it's very interesting. So, she wasn't feeling that great, and she wasn't thinking. So she sees that there was a blue and white bus pulling up. She was using Google Maps, by the way, to get around, to get to Har HaZeisim. Never do that in Eretz Yisrael. And she gets onto the bus. She gets onto the bus, and she wasn't feeling that great. She didn't notice anything. She sits down, and she falls asleep. She falls asleep. She wakes up 25 minutes later. And she wakes up, and she sees, she must have realized that she missed her stop, the bus stop. She was only supposed to be on the bus for 5 minutes. Within 2 minutes, she fell asleep, and 25 minutes later, she wakes up, and she's in the middle of Eastern Jerusalem. She doesn't realize it yet, though. But she knows she has to get off the bus because she went too far. So she gets off the bus and she crosses the road to take a bus back from the direction she was coming from. But the problem is, because she was in Eastern Jerusalem, there was no real bus stop where she could find the bus. So she's waiting there alone, standing alone, stranded. She didn't know this, but it was actually the first night of Ramadan. First night of Ramadan, it's empty. It was towards evening, and all the Arabs were home. They were breaking their fast. Now, by the way, you can't believe if I wouldn't have heard this myself. By the way, this is just an unbelievable story. So listen to what happens. But it's a true story. It's true. She told it to me. I spoke to her 3 times, asking her all the details. So she gets off the bus. She's waiting for the bus stop to take her back from the direction she came from. She can't find the bus back. So she starts walking in the direction where the bus came from, where she came from. So she walks, and she sees that there is a settlement. She walks into the settlement, and immediately she realizes that she must be in Eastern Jerusalem because, first of all, the way the houses were, they were shuttered up. There were no street lights. And there were posters plastered on the walls from different, Palestinian heroes that gave up their lives killing Jews. And she can't read Arabic. By the way, now when I spoke to her, she learned Arabic, so just in case she ever gets involved in such a situation like that again. But she reads, she sees the pictures of the different Palestinians, and she realizes she's in trouble. She takes out her phone, and her phone is out of battery. Her phone died. So there she is, stranded alone in Eastern Jerusalem. Nobody's on the street. She doesn't know where to go. She doesn't know what to do. And of course, what does a Yid do in a situation like this? Shila mahalo tesoina yelearim mayayin yavo ezri. She starts saying Tehillim. And she's mumbling chapters of Tehillim, and she's really, really nervous. And she says, look, I got to make a shtadlus. I got to get out of here. So what's she going to do? So she decides she's going to look for the house that that doesn't look so Arabic. It looks nice on the outside. Light comes out of it. The grass in the front is taken care of. So she sees a house, and she decides to knock on the door. She'll take the risk. There are no Palestinian posters hanging on the walls of the house. She knocks on the door, and in her mind, she tells herself that she's going to present herself as this social justice, pro-Palestinian, Californian UCLA student that's trying to write up an essay on the Palestinians, and she's working for their cause so she can save her life. But she knocks on the door, and she already in her mind, she already knows what she's going to say. She's only going to speak English, pretend not to know any Hebrew. And this woman, must have been a 19-year-old Palestinian girl, opens the door. She opens the door. She's wearing a hijab, and she's wearing all the shemaim begodim of the Arabs. And she looks at her, and she says, Chana? And Chana's caught off guard because Chana says, I'm supposed to be this social justice, pro-Palestinian girl from UCLA in Los Angeles. So this girl, this Palestinian girl, schleps her in, gives her a gigantic hug, and pulls out a card from off the shelf that Chana had written to her 6 months earlier. And she says in Hebrew, Arabic Hebrew, she says, Chana, Yeshli takartis. She said, I still have your card. And this girl is so excited to see her. And Chana suddenly realizes who this is. And she remembered that 6 months earlier, she was actually running a program for Aish in Israel. And she was staying at the King Solomon with a group of girls. And she was there for 3 weeks. And she decided 6 months earlier that she's going to keep a notepad. And every person she meets, any staff member, the receptionist, the waitresses, the cooks, the bellboy, whatever, anybody in the hotel, she'll write down their names, their shifts, their interests, and she'll make it a point to really connect with every single person. So she told me she had around a list of 50 names in that notepad. 50 names. And she knew Mahmoud, Muhammad, it doesn't matter. Every Arab name is really, it didn't matter to her, everybody. And she said to me the last day, when the trip, they were about to check out of the hotel, they had this last breakfast. And by breakfast, she noticed that there was one staff member, she must have been new, this Palestinian girl. She's standing at the coffee station, handing out coffee, pouring coffee to every single person. And she says, well, I haven't seen you. What's your name? And she introduced herself, and they started schmoozing. And this Palestinian girl said, I want to go to medical school. I want to become a doctor. But I need a job. I have to save up some money, so I'm here. And I have a lot of family members here. They got me this job at the King Solomon Hotel. And she wrote down her name as soon as she went back to the table. And before she left, she made sure to write thank you cards to every single person. She didn't have money to give tips. And the last thank you card she gave to this girl who she had just met by the coffee station. And now she's face to face with this girl in Eastern Jerusalem. And the girl remembered her. And she said, Chana? And she takes out the card off the shelf, and she says, I still have your thank you card. Now, she's so excited to see Chana. She thinks that Chana came to visit her. Because she said to her before, and she said, come visit. So she pulls Chana into the kitchen where all the Arabs, they're breaking their Ramadan fast, and a lot of her family members were staff at the King Solomon, and everybody recognizes her. Chana! So nice to see you! And she plays along, and 15 minutes later, she can't wait to get out. She says, it's so great. It's so nice to see everybody. And she says, is there a bus back? Can I take a bus back? And they looked at her, they said, no, there's no bus, you can't take a bus back, there's no buses right now. But the uncle said, I'll drive you back to the bus stop by Shimon HaTzadik, and you could take the train over there, the light rail to wherever you have to go. And she said, no problem. So she gets into the car with this the 19-year-old Palestinian girl with her uncle, and they come to the security checkpoint. And the Chayal looks into the car, and he sees like a Jewish girl with two Palestinians, and he says, Hakol Beseda? She said, yeah, these are my friends, And they dropped her off, and the next day she went to the King Solomon. They worked at the King Solomon, and she thanked them profusely. But when I shared the story with people, I asked them, what are you more impressed with? Are you more impressed with the Hashgacha Pratis, or are you more impressed with a girl that stayed present and wrote down everybody's name, their jobs, their interests, and tried to connect in a genuine and real way with every person she met? And to me personally, I know that Hashem is great. I know Hashem runs the world. Hashem is, of course, that's a miracle, but it's not half as impressive as a human being taking the time, staying present, staying in the moment, trying to connect with every single person. Because we have to understand that if we want to develop deep and meaningful relationships, we have to be people that understand that if anybody who comes into your consciousness, anybody who comes into your life, it doesn't matter if it's for a fleeting moment or if it's forever. Just stay present. That's the only way you can develop a relationship to begin with. We live in such a fast-paced world, it's unbelievable. But just stay present. There's so many people who are vying and desperate for attention. Just give them the few minutes you have in a real and genuine way.